Okay, so we're pretty much almost complete with this file. I just kind of like to take this text that I have here. Let me just move this for a minute. I want to take this body copy and this heading, and I like this little section right here. I want to put it right in there. So what I want my file to end up looking, I've been working on this for a little bit to set up your tutorial. So what I actually want it to look like is this. And I think that gives it a nice little effect. If you if I go ahead and view this, I can go to file. I want to just preview this. I like to use Opera, and that's what I'm using. I like what I have so far. You know, this is going to be kind of similar to what you'll be working with in your file, but we're going to talk a little bit about how you're going to actually lay yours out. So we're going to go ahead and work on this. But before we get started on this, I want to talk a little bit about using absolute positioning. We're going to work on this image and text today. So what we're going to do is we're going to position, we're actually going to create a box. We're going to go, let me go back to this one. So we're going to position this text and we're going to actually create a box on our file. And we're going to do all this using cascading style sheets. So position your box. So when you've created boxes on your page, you want to place them. So this is what we're going to do here. We're going to make an absolute position. So to do this, you need to understand two concepts about position and float. So we're going to work on all this today. If you go ahead and look in your book and on page 223, there is a whole section there about boxes, position your boxes. So some of the ways you could do this is by static, relative, inherent, absolute is what we're going to do here, and fixed. So as you're working through your book, you're going to be practicing doing all these different kind of boxes. For this tutorial, I'm going to explain how we're going to position this box by using absolute positioning. So in the last few tutorials that we've been working on, we were working with the article, which be where it is at, and that is what this is up here in this section right here. And we're going to put this over the large image that we have here of the Golden Gate Bridge, this image right here, as I just explained. So the technique we're going to use for this is called absolute positioning. So absolute positioning allows you to specify the precise position of an element. So understanding how absolute positioning works. So HTML elements normally expand and contract to fit whatever content you put in them. For example, if I add another paragraph to my main article, it will simply become taller. And if right down here, if I kept adding paragraphs to this, it would just make this expand. It would just become taller. And it's going to keep pushing the footer down towards the page. So with absolute positioning, the element is removed from the normal flow of the page and it no longer interacts with other elements. The browser floats it in front of the page on an independent layer. In fact, absolutely positioned elements were frequently called layers. So as a result, you try to lay out a complete page using absolute positioning. Some elements might overlap if their content is too long, or you might end up with unsightly gaps if content is shorter than expected. So absolute positioning remains useful in situations where overlapping is desirable, such as placing a small block of text over an image. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this tutorial. This is not a very long tutorial. It shouldn't take too long for you to complete this. So when you set an element's position property to absolute, you fix its position by specifying one or more offset properties, top, bottom, left, and right. Setting an offset property moves the specified side of the element away from the side of its containing block. So these are things that are kind of important for you to understand. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that paper that I have for you, this PDF file, and we're going to talk a little bit about the positive move values move the element towards the center of the containing block. So for example, this is showing you right here. For example, if you set the element's top property to 100 pixels, which is what we have right here, it moves the top of the element 100 pixels down from the top. So just like you hear, it moves it 100 pixels down from the top of its containing block. So if you set its left property to 150, so it's going to move it 150 pixels from the left side of the containing block. So if this is where I want to position this element, then I would put 100 pixels up at the top, and over on the left side I would place in 150 pixels. It really depends upon where you want to place it. So setting an offset to a negative value moves the element in the opposite direction. Let's just scroll down here and you can see this. For example, if the top property is set to minus 500, assuming the position element is less than 500 pixels high, it will be completely outside its containing block. In other words, the containing block doesn't constrain where the element can be displayed. It's the point from which the offsets are calculated. So if I put in 500 pixels and it's bigger than my containing block, then it's just going to float outside the containing block. So identifying the containing block. So misunderstanding the containing block is probably the biggest cause of headaches with absolute positioning. It isn't necessarily the same as the parent element. The containing block and absolutely position element is defined as the containing block is the nearest position element higher up the HTML family tree. In other words, the containing block must have a position of absolute, fixed, or relative. And if you go back on in your book and on page 223 in Visual Quick Start, it'll explain what each one of these are. I'm not going to go into detail with this. That's done so well in your book. If no element exists, the page is the containing block. So that's something else you need to understand. So if you are absolutely position element 100 pixels from the left, it will always be precisely 100 pixels from the edge of the page. Just like in here, if I put 150 pixels, it will always be 150 pixels from the edge of the page. However, if you have centered other elements such as the wrapper div, like in the base date beat design, the distance of the center element from the edge of the page depends entirely on the width of the browser's window. So that can be a problem. So if your browser's window is 800 pixels wide, or 1000 pixels wide, or 12,000 pixels wide, the left side, the absolutely position element, and the wrapper div would line up with each other. At any different size, the absolute position element will still be 100 pixels from the edge. So if it's 800 pixels wide, then it's still going to be 100 pixels from the edge. If it's 1200 pixels wide, then it's still going to be 100 pixels from the edge. And this can cause a lot of problems. So you don't really want this to happen. So what is the solution to this? The solution is actually pretty easy. You're going to set the position property of the absolutely positioned element's parent to like a relative, okay? So the offsets are then calculated from the size of the parent. So it's going to be parent to relative. If the parent moves, the absolutely positioned element moves in sync. So that, in other words, if whatever the parent is, it's going to be a relative to that parent, and it's going to move with the parent. So the article inside the hero div is relatively short, and a large expanse of sky is a perfect place to put it. That's what I was saying before. So this is actually a perfect place where we're going to put it. So make sure you have live view selected, which I have right here. If you have design, go ahead and switch it over to live view. Okay, so that you can do this correctly. I'm going to move this out of the way, my files. We don't really need this right now. I'm going to put it right out of the window. And we're mainly just going to concentrate on this. Make sure you have main selected. That's very important. If you don't have that selected, it's going to cause some issues. So to keep related styles together, select the wrapper right here in the selectors pane. And now we're going to click the plus button to create a new selector, and we're going to call this hero. So you can follow a line of paper that may make it really a lot easier for you. Let's just call this hero. And you see it just pops right up. and then we're going to hit enter or return. Okay, so in the layout, we're going to set the position property to relative. If you can't find it, just kind of scroll right down until you find position. And right here where it says static, we're going to select relative right down here. So you still have the hero selected, and in the selectors pane, we're going to create a new selector, and we're going to call it hero article. So make sure you have this still selected. We're going to click here for a new selector. We're going to call this hero, and we're going to put a space in. We're going to call it article. And it goes right down to article, and you're going to hit enter and stay right where you are. So in the layout section right here, you just make sure you have that selected. We're going to set the width property to 36% on the left and right padding to 10%. So let's just go up to where it says width. I'm going to make sure I select percent, and I'm going to scroll this to, you see how things are already starting to change on your file. I scroll this to 36, and then I'm going to go down to padding right here, and we're going to set the left and right padding to 10 pixels. Left, I'm going to put 10, and right padding, you can scroll if you want, either way. I'm going to make sure that that's also 10. I find scrolling hard to do. I find it easier just to write it in. Okay, so now we're all set with that. So we're starting to set this up so that it looks a little bit better. And we're going to go down to where it says right below it, you're going to set the position property to absolute. So right below where it says padding, just follow right along in this, and we're going to set this to absolute. So you notice now that since we did that, let's just take a look over at our file. It's already starting to position itself. Position itself where it's supposed to be. The article moves inside the hero div, and you know you're doing this right. So let's just, if you notice here, it kind of goes up underneath the navigational bar, and we don't really want that to happen. So to fix this problem, we're going to select hero in the selectors pane. So we're going to go back to hero. We're going to select that, and we're going to set the clear property to left. Okay, so you scroll down a little bit until you find it. Here it is right here. Clear property. We're going to select where it says here to left. And you see how it just jumps right down where it's supposed to be. So we're going to continue styling this, and we're going to select the hero article. We're going to select this, go back down and select hero article, because that's what we want to do. And we're going to scrub the top and right offsets in the position visual tool to move the article. To position it over the other side, we want to position it over this side, over onto the right side of the Golden Gate Bridge. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to position. So scroll right straight to position, where it says we have padding position right here. And I found that if I put the top at 40, that seemed to be pretty good. We want to keep it at pixels, and you can scrub it again. I'm going to put this at 40. You can kind of work with this, whatever works good for you. Your numbers might be a little different. Everybody's computer's a little different. And then I'm going to set the right to about 43. And like I said, it really depends upon what works. See how it just jumps over. So you can put it at 43. You can move it in even more. It just really depends. Let me just see what it looks like at 45. kind of like that. I might even want to bring it in a little more. Let's try it at 50. Let's see what it looks like. I like that. So now it's starting to shape up here. I kind of like what I have so far. It really didn't take too much to get this to be the way you want it to look. So we're going to click the background icon to bring the properties into view. So go ahead and select that. We're going to select where it says background icon. We're still going to be on hero article. And I'm going to go out to my file. I'm going to select right here inside this background color. And I'm going to go out with this little eyedropper. I'm going to choose this color. This is like orange color right here. I'm going to hit enter. Ah, look at that. We put a little color around it. So wow, starting to shape up here. I'm starting to like what I see. Okay. So now if I scroll up a little bit and just before the colors, and you'll see this border, this little circle here, we're going to actually put a little circle around this. Now if you don't like this color that you have, you can always change it. If you want it to be a different color, you want it to maybe be a lighter orange, maybe not quite so. Actually, I like that color right there better. I think I like that color better, so I'm going to hit enter. You can just change that color to whatever you want to. If you like this, maybe keep it this color. You know, you can go out and select that. It's just really totally dependent up to you. But for this exercise, I'm not going to go too crazy. So I'm going to click this little chain in the right in the middle here, and I'm going to set this to 15 all the way around. And again, you can it depends on what you like. Let's hit enter. I may even want to make this 20. I think I like that better. You can just kind of work with this, whatever works for you. You see now we're already starting to shape this up, and it's already looking much better. It's not really that difficult to do this, but it just takes a little bit of mindset to figure out what you're doing and what you're not doing. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on my text. So I have to select my text property. Just go ahead and select the text property. And I'm going to change my my body copy to a white color. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this, and I'm just going to put in FFF. Enter. All right, so now body copy has changed. So now we have some nice contrast. I really want you to make sure that when you're working with your file that you think about contrast. If I can't read it, then your user can't read it. If your fellow student can't read it, then when you place this online, nobody else is going to be able to read it. So now I'm going to create a new selector, and I'm going to call it Hero H2, because that's the heading that we did here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit plus, and I'm going to call this Hero. And a space H2 and hit enter. Make sure you hit enter and this goes in. Okay, so now we're on Hero H2. So now we're just going to do the heading right here. We're going to change this to a white color. So go ahead and select, make sure you have text selected, and you select this, you put in the white. Hit enter. See, now that's changed into white. So far it's looking really good. I like what I have here. So I'm also going to make this all caps. Remember, all caps are good to use when you oops, the wrong one. All caps are okay to use when you have a very short heading. You can use all caps for all the little headings here, but if your heading is long, all caps can end up being really hard to read. It's actually best to keep your headings as short as possible. No, you know, even your minor headings, your major headings, minor headings, don't make them very long. It's very difficult for your user to read. Okay, so now I've made this all caps, and I'm just going to kind of bring this together a little more, and I'm going to go to the layout section again right here. and I'm going to reduce the vertical space around the heading by scrubbing the top margin to 5 points and the bottom margin to about 7. So I'll go ahead and select margin, which is right here. So the top margin I'm going to put at 5. You see how it's changing over there? Actually, I'd like it better just about there at 10. Okay. And then the bottom, let's just try it with the bottom margin and see what the bottom margin looks like. So the bottom margin is going to be negative. Okay. I really like what I have. You can play around with this and do it any way that you want to. It really depends upon you, what you like and what you don't like. When you're working with your own file, you might try to do something like this. It just kind of makes it look pretty cool. So far, I really like what I have. Now, I just want to take a minute here and talk a little bit about this file that I have here. Okay, and as far as your file goes, you can create you're going to be creating your heading as a JPEG. If you want to change this when you're working in your file and you prefer to use a text that's already inside Dreamweaver, if you want to use one of those special fonts, that's totally up to you. It might be easier for you when you want to put in your navigational bar and work on the top. So let me just give you a little word of advice. If you're going to do that, then you're going to want to make this your heading 1. Now, in a file like this, you should actually have a major heading. So writing the cable cards probably would be your major heading. Now, if you make your logo heading 1, then your major heading in your file should be larger than all your other headings. You should have one major heading in your newspaper file, and you can make that H2. So all your other headings would be H3. So just keeping that in mind as you're working with your file. Okay, and remember, this is just a tutorial, a step-by-step tutorial. You need to have some advertisements in yours. Yours is not going to be exactly the same as this file. This is just a very basic little file just to help you understand how to put your newspaper together. So that is the end of all these tutorials. I hope this has helped you with working on your own file. If you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to email me. So I'm going to stop here. And good luck with your project.